Welcome to the Success with Jewelry podcast, where we invite you inside our conversations about business success and marketing for jewelry designers and entrepreneurs.
We're Laryssa and Liz, jewelry marketing experts with a combined 16 years of experience in jewelry marketing and proven track records in helping jewelry brands meet their goals. When you listen to or watch this podcast, you get an intimate and exclusive peek behind the curtain of all the things you wish you could know about earning success in this industry.
Welcome to episode 100.
Woo!
In this episode, it's very exciting. In this episode, we'll share big takeaways from our listeners and our future plans for the podcast. In the bonus content, we'll discuss what we think are the most important episodes. To get access to exclusive content as well as direct access to me and Laryssa, sign up by visiting successwithjewelry.com. Hey, Laryssa, let's get into it.
We need like air horns or something like that.
I know that might scare people though, but yay, episode 100. Who knew that we would make it here?
Wow, it's amazing. It's a true milestone. I'm excited.
It's a big milestone. It's a very exciting milestone. And for this episode, full transparency, I went on a mission to see if we could get voice clips, like voice notes from listeners to hear about them and their biggest takeaways since they became listeners to the podcast. And I had a few people who considered sending me a voice note, but nobody did. And I was just reminded of how hard it is to get user-generated content.
It's really, really, really hard, but it's amazing that you tried, Liz, and we put ourselves out there and it didn't work, but that didn't discourage us.
It didn't discourage us because I pivoted and I was like, okay, well, message me your biggest takeaways. Like just text me, send a DM, let me know what your biggest takeaway was. And we got some of those. So we have those to share. And I'll try again for the 200th episode and maybe we'll get voice notes.
Okay, so if you're listening right now, you have 100 episodes to prepare yourself for giving us a voice note.
Yes. And maybe we'll get a couple. But I also want to shout out our listeners because several people messaged us saying that they have started planning for holiday. And I'm so proud.
Yay. So proud. That's amazing. Good work, everyone.
Good work, everyone. It's, even if we aren't getting as much engagement as we're asking for, I mean, we know people are listening and we appreciate all of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for listening to us. We appreciate you. Talk to us more. We want to hear from you, but it's also okay if you're shy and you don't want to.
Like, talk to us, but it's okay if you don't want to.
Yeah, it's okay.
Seriously, talk to us.
We get it.
We get it. We totally get it. But anyway, let's share some of these takeaways from listeners. The first one, which I think is a sentiment I've heard like in reviews and before, and like when people have DM'd me over the past year, is like, we all feel the same emotions and struggles running a small business. It's hard, but the support we give each other is invaluable. We can do it. And that was Elise from Mayha Jewelry. But a lot of people have written to me over the years, like, just it's great to know that other people are struggling with the same thing.
Yes. Something I find in my business too, even though I don't sell jewelry, I run a business and it's so nice to be in this community and we're all going through similar things, even if it's not necessarily about selling jewelry. And it means a lot. It's comforting.
It is hard to own a small business. It's hard to run a business. It's hard to, even if you work in the jewelry industry and you're not running a business and you're listening, it's hard to work in this industry and it's hard to balance like work and life and all the things. So,
especially if you don't have a business partner and you're doing it by yourself.
Yes, I agree. It is very challenging to make decisions on your own in your own head and like be your marketing person and your quality control and your operations manager and your sales director. It's a lot.
Oh yeah, decision fatigue. Ugh.
I know. And then you have to decide what to make for dinner too, on top of that.
I know.
Another takeaway that we received from Sarah Golden is that our focus in marketing should be connections and relationships. And maybe we need to reevaluate how exactly Instagram helps us do that. We've placed such an emphasis on social media as a way to raise awareness, but maybe it needs to be more about nurturing our audiences instead of catching new eyeballs, which I completely agree with.
We endorse this statement.
Yes. And of course, it's a takeaway from us. So it is something that we have said at some point, but it's so true. Actually, right before this episode, a Stay Gold member messaged me asking about this kind of new idea around creating smaller communities. So having several platforms where you have smaller engaged audiences rather than like putting all of your eggs in the Instagram basket. And I was like, that is something we should talk about further on another episode because I think that social media, I mean, I know social media is changing and we do need to think about it differently, but connections are the reason we're doing marketing. We want to connect with people and build relationships.
It's a relationship business for sure.
So that's a great takeaway.
I
Thanks for
like
sharing,
that.
Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
And then Anna from Metal Atelier remembers something that you said, Laryssa, and this is very impactful. It's important to work on your business, not just in your business.
Yes, I love it.
Can you
Also, if
explain
you
what that
want,
means?
can I explain what that means? Yeah.
Sure.
So I think that a lot of us, when we're solopreneurs, we just get caught up in the day to day and like fulfilling our day to day tasks. Like for a jewelry business owner, that might be being at the bench, shipping out packages, like responding to customer emails, and then you're caught up in that. But working on the business is thinking ahead more strategically, doing planning, planting seeds, like brainstorming new ideas for the future and getting ahead of like the day-to-day muck that we get stuck in, you know?
It's so important. And it's such a mindset shift. And I think that because we are wearing all of these hats and there are like the to-do list keeps growing and there are things in front of you that you have to do, setting aside time to think bigger picture and to think like about where you want your business to go will make all of those to-dos worth it.
Yeah, I have to give a lot of credit to Tracy Matthews on this because her book now, oh, so bad. I can't remember the name of her book, but basically, Tracy Matthews' book is like all about this being like the visionary of your business.
And I think that especially when designers come into it as makers, maybe like coming from like it being a hobby and like loving to make things, then to have to transition to like creating a business around it and like being the head person who has the vision for where you want to go. I mean, that's a tough shift.
It's so hard. Yeah. There's another book. Dang it. I can't remember the names of anything today, but in this book, they have the example of someone who's like a baker and they love baking and that's their passion. And so they decide to turn it into a business. But with baking, what's so extreme is if you're going to have a business, you have to wake up at like 3 a.m. every morning. You're going to be like slaving away at baking. And if you don't plan that transition and think of the strategy, like now your life's just going to be waking up super early and being at the oven all
Mhm.
day, you know? And making jewelry isn't as extreme as that, I don't think, but like it's a similar kind of problem that you get yourself into.
Right. And, it's also like when you want to create a business around something you love, it's like you have to also do things you don't love.
That is very true. Yes, it's a reality. Until you can get to the point where you can hire people to do it for you. But even then,
Even then, you still have to be involved
yeah,
with the things you don't like.
exactly.
So this is from Margaret from In the Light of Day Jewelry. She says planning and consistency are everything and lead to growth in unexpected ways, which I mean, this is a great takeaway. I love this one because I feel like this
Yay.
is something we touch on every episode.
Can we put that on a t-shirt?
Should we do merch?
I love it. Maybe.
Let me quickly add that to when we talk about what's next for our podcast.
Then whenever we record, we can wear our merch.
We can wear our merch. Yeah, merch is cool. I think a lot about merch, but
You did merch last year.
I did merch last year and I have plans for more merch, like cooler merch, but it is taking longer than expected as things do.
Well, that means that it's going to be real good.
It's going to be real good, but the thing that actually, this is such a side note, but I was doing a presentation about holiday planning and I was looking at notes from last year And I totally remember that now is when we need to start thinking about like any like holiday cards or
Mhm.
like gifting we want to do, especially if we want to do it around Thanksgiving or in November. I was like, oh, I have to get on that because I was like, this is the year I'm going to do a holiday card.
Yes. Oh man. That for me usually happens in like early October, and it could take a little more time than you think it would, especially if you want to send it in a timely manner before like the holiday rush.
I need to add that to my to-do list. But anyway, the last one we received, and you're welcome to, after this, listening to this episode, if you want to share your biggest takeaway since listening, we would absolutely love to hear it. But the last one we received is from Holly Harris, and she's been listening since fall/winter of 2022 and loves the insight and looks forward to the weekly episodes ever since. My biggest takeaway has been the importance of e-commerce and content creation, and that it's never a one-size-fits-all approach. Your passion for educating and sharing your knowledge is inspiring to me. Wow. Thanks, Holly.
Oh my
That's really
God.
nice.
I didn't even know Liz had collected all of these things before recording this episode.
To again, to be very transparent, some of these I've pulled from past, like, biggest takeaways people have sent me because I manage the Instagram account. So not all of them were sent specifically for our 100th episode, but Holly's was, and it's so good. Thank you,
That's
Holly.
very kind. Wow.
Yeah, that's super kind. Elise sent me hers specific for this episode as well. And we always appreciate Elise.
Elise is the best.
Yes. And yeah, anytime anyone's engaged with us, we appreciate it. When thinking about what's next for the podcast, and it's not something that Laryssa and I have thought about quite yet. We're like, uh, we need to have a strategy
On
session
the
or
fly.
yeah, we're on the fly here. But, we've talked around it a few times. But I think that like engagement is one of the things that I'm really passionate about bringing more into this because it does feel, I think, for both of us sometimes pretty one-sided. And we've gotten like with a consistent Instagram plan, I think we've gotten a little bit more engagement. And again, we appreciate all of it. But it's something I want to dig in further with and get to know our listeners better and kind of bring them into the narrative a bit more.
I agree. I think that's a great idea. Remember when we first started and we had like super tight outline and it was just us like lecturing basic?
There is some good information in those episodes though, but doing the outline was torture. I mean, that's like extreme. It wasn't torture, but it was like
It's
having
a
to do the
lot.
outline was a lot. It was a lot of work.
Yeah, so if you want really good information, go back to those early episodes. But I agree, they're not as engaging. They're kind of more like talking at people rather than bringing them in. So I like that.
And then the other thing that we're definitely working towards and have been working towards is bringing in more interviews because we've gotten so much good feedback about all of the interviews we've done are like our top episodes. So we definitely have more interviews coming your way, and we have a whole list of people that we want to chat with. So if you have
Yeah,
any ideas, send them our way. Or
we'd
if
be
you,
happy to consider.
we'd be happy to consider. And if you want to be on the podcast, shoot us a message. We'd love to chat.
Yeah. We're very open.
Very open. We are kind of just rolling with it, which is great. I like just kind of going with the flow with this aspect of my business, of our business, of our this thing
Yeah.
that we're doing.
Well, the thing that's cool about it, really, because I have another podcast and that's more specifically like for my business and you do your thing, but there's no real pressure on this podcast to like be our livelihood. And so we're free to just explore.
It pays for our like fancy coffee drinks if we choose to have them once a week.
Barely.
Barely. Anyway, yeah, and that's something too. I think that, we love our insiders. We love the extended episodes. I think our favorite part of this is the extended episodes and recording them. But I think that's something that we want to think about too, is like, how can we kind of keep adding to that or keep providing more content for our insiders?
Definitely. I agree.
And then merch.
Yeah, merch is something that could be fun. And maybe that's a way to get people to engage. We can like give them merch.
We'll give them merch. Everybody's getting merch.
You get merch and you get merch and you get merch.
We'll get out the t-shirt cannon. It'll be like you're at a baseball game.
Wow.
All right. So what has your biggest takeaway been? Let us know. Visit successwithjewelry.com. And if you love the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Send us a message or leave us a review. Thanks for being a part of the Success with Jewelry community.